Keanu Reeves had always been a private man, known for his humility and kindness, but it wasn't until he discovered his driver, David, was homeless that he realized the true power of compassion. David had been working as Keanu's driver for months, always punctual, always professional. But beneath his quiet demeanor was a man struggling to survive. He had lost his home due to circumstances beyond his control, and every night he and his daughter Emily slept in their car, trying to make do with what little they had. The cold nights, the constant fear of being asked to leave parking lots, and the uncertainty of where their next meal would come from had become their reality. One evening, after a long day on set, Keanu noticed the exhaustion in David's eyes. He had always admired his driver's dedication, but something about his weariness struck him differently that night. When David dropped him off, Keanu hesitated before stepping out. "You okay, man?" Keanu asked casually. David forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired." Keanu nodded but felt an unease settle in his chest. He had always trusted his instincts, and something told him there was more to David's fatigue than just a long shift. The next day, he discreetly asked around and was shocked to learn the truth. David was homeless, living out of his car with his young daughter. Keanu couldn't shake the thought of David and Emily trying to sleep in a cramped car. He imagined Emily curled up in the back seat, clutching a worn-out teddy bear, unaware of the hardships pressing down on her father. That night, Keanu made a decision. When David arrived to pick him up the following evening, Keanu asked him to drive to a different location. Confused but obedient, David did as told. When they arrived at a modest but comfortable apartment complex, Keanu handed him a set of keys. "This place is yours," Keanu said simply. David's eyes widened. I can't accept this." "You can, and you will," Keanu replied firmly. "It's not charity. It's just someone who sees a friend in need." Tears welled in David's eyes, and for the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to feel relief. Emily, who had been sitting in the back seat, looked up at her father with excitement. "Do I have my own room?" she asked eagerly. Keanu grinned. "Of course, and you can decorate it however you like." Emily squealed in delight, running into the apartment to explore. David, overwhelmed with emotion, turned to Keanu. "I don't know how to thank you." Keanu placed a hand on his shoulder. "Don't. Just get back on your feet. And when you're able, help someone else." Over the next few weeks, David worked tirelessly at an auto repair shop Keanu had helped him find. He was determined to prove himself, to make the most of the opportunity he had been given. The first days were tough. His hands ached from long hours, and the pressure of rebuilding his life was immense. But every night, when he returned home and saw Emily sleeping peacefully in her own bed, he knew it was worth it. Meanwhile, Emily started school for the first time in years. At first, she was shy, hesitant to interact with other children, but within days, she began making friends. Her laughter filled the apartment, and for the first time in a long while, David felt like he could breathe without the crushing weight of uncertainty pressing down on him. Keanu had stepped back, giving them space to adjust, never making David feel like he owed him something. He had always believed that kindness wasn't about obligation. It was about lifting someone up when they needed it most. One night, after a particularly exhausting shift, David found Keanu standing on the apartment's balcony, gazing at the sky. He stepped beside him, following his gaze to the stars. "You changed our lives," David said quietly. Keanu smiled but shook his head. "No, David, you changed them. I just gave you a push." David took a deep breath, feeling lighter than he had in years. "I'll never forget this." "Just promise me one thing," Keanu said, turning to face him. "Anything. When you're stable, when you're back on your feet, help someone else." David nodded, the weight of that promise settling in his heart. "I swear." A few months later, David had saved enough to start looking for a more permanent home. He had been promoted at the shop, and Emily was thriving in school. One evening, he saw a man outside the auto repair shop, a young father with his son, staring hopelessly at a broken-down car. He recognized the look in the man's eyes, the same desperation he had once carried. Without hesitation, David walked over. "Need some help?" he asked. The man hesitated before nodding. "Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to get home." David smiled, remembering Keanu's words. Don't worry. Let's get you fixed up. Weeks passed, and David continued helping where he could, quietly paying forward the kindness he had received. Keanu would check in now and then, never interfering, just watching with quiet pride. One evening, David invited him over for dinner, a simple meal, but one filled with gratitude and warmth. As Keanu looked back up at the stars that night, he knew this was only the beginning. Sometimes, all it took was one act of kindness to set off a chain reaction of hope, and in that moment, he knew he had done something truly worthwhile. As time went on, David began taking night courses to further his skills, hoping to one day open his own auto shop. Keanu continued to be a silent supporter, offering words of encouragement when needed but never overstepping. One day, David received an offer for a managerial position at the repair shop, a far cry from where he had been just months ago. He accepted with pride, knowing he had earned it. Emily, now flourishing in school, had even begun writing about her experiences. One of her essays about kindness and second chances caught the attention of a teacher who submitted it to a local newspaper. When Keanu read it, he couldn't help but smile. One night, David stood on the same balcony Keanu once had, looking at the sky. He thought about where he had been and where he was now. When Keanu joined him, David turned and extended a hand. "I finally understand," David said. Keanu clasped his hand with a knowing smile. "Good. Now go make a difference." Months later, David's dream became a reality. He opened his own repair shop. He hired people who had been in situations like his, giving them a fresh start. Keanu visited the shop, watching as David trained his new employees. "You're really doing it," Keanu said, pride in his voice. David smiled. "Because of you." "No," Keanu corrected. "Because you never gave up." And as they stood there, two friends who had once been strangers, they knew their story was just one of many. The world needed more kindness, and they had done their part to spread it.